In the beginning, before the earth turned, before the stars lit the sky, there was only the divine realm, a place beyond time, where light and order flowed from a single source, believed by many to be the Creator, the Almighty, the original force behind everything that is. From this presence came beings of pure energy, of beauty and strength, called angels. Each one was made with purpose. Some were warriors, some were messengers, others were watchers, sent to observe the worlds being formed. And above them all stood the most radiant among them, a being named Lucifer. His name meant light-bearer, and he was perfect in wisdom, power, and charm. But something stirred within him: desire, pride, a hunger not just to serve, but to rule. And slowly, in whispers, he planted thoughts in the minds of other angels. He spoke of freedom, of choice, of rising higher than their creator, of taking thrones for themselves. 1/3 of heaven listened. They followed him. And when the time came, war erupted. Not the kind of war humans know, not with blades and blood. This was a war of light against light, of will against will. The Archangel Michael, fierce and loyal, led the host of heaven. And when the dust of eternity settled, Lucifer and his followers were cast out, not destroyed, but exiled. They fell, burning into the lower realms, and were sealed away in darkness. But their story did not end there. It was only beginning. The earth had been made, life was growing, and humanity was just beginning to open its eyes. And the fallen angels, those cast down, they looked upon human women with desire. They descended. They took them. They broke the laws of heaven. They mated with flesh. And what came from that union was not human. These were the Nephilim, giants, beings of immense size and unnatural power, born of spirit and blood, born to rule and dominate. Their presence shattered the balance of the world. They taught men to kill. They gave forbidden knowledge. They taught sorcery, war, metalwork, seduction. The earth became filled with violence, lust, and corruption. The Creator looked down and saw a world defiled, a world on the edge of collapse. And so came the judgment, a great flood, a cleansing of the world. The Nephilim were drowned. Their fathers, the fallen angels, were bound and cast into the abyss, a prison deep below, called Tartarus. But even then, their influence lingered. Their whispers echoed in human minds. Their knowledge remained hidden in stone, in symbols, in bloodlines passed down through kings and empires. The Book of Enoch speaks of these days. So do the Sumerians, the Greeks, the Hindus. All over the ancient world, the story is the same: a heavenly rebellion, a forbidden union, a fall, and a flood. The same themes, the same warnings. This was not mythology. It was memory, twisted by time, buried by fear. The war in heaven did not stop in the skies. It continued here, on earth. And some say it still does. Behind governments, behind religions, behind every shadow that falls across history. And if that is true, then we are not just living in a world of flesh and blood. We are living on a battlefield, one that began long before we were born, and one that may still be waiting to end. After the flood, when the waters receded and the earth began again, the memories of what came before were carried by whispers, carved into stone, and hidden in ancient texts that few dared to read aloud. The giants were gone, or so it seemed. But their bones have been found across the world, towering skeletons buried in caves, deserts, and mountains, then quickly hidden or discredited by those in power. Their story became legend, and then legend was turned into myth. But myth does not erase truth, and in the shadows of ancient temples and forbidden ruins, pieces of that truth still remain. The fallen angels, those once so beautiful and radiant, left behind more than memories. They left bloodlines, secrets, symbols of power etched into architecture from Egypt to South America, repeating patterns that modern science cannot explain. They left behind tales of divine beings descending from the sky, of wars fought in the heavens above, and of celestial beings ruling among men. Every major civilization tells the same story in different words. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, powerful sky beings who created mankind to serve them. The Greeks told of the Titans and Olympians, locked in an eternal war for dominance. The Hindus recorded the Devas and Asuras, battling across realms, and the Hebrews wrote of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the flood that followed. These were not isolated fantasies. They were shared memories of something too powerful to forget. The angels who fell were not all imprisoned. Some were worshipped. Some became the gods of old. They ruled with fear and awe. They demanded sacrifice. They taught kings how to rule and conquer. And in return, their bloodlines survived. Some believe that royal families throughout history have claimed divine right, not just as metaphor, but because they carry the trace of something ancient in their veins, something not entirely human. And as centuries passed, that ancient war took new forms. It was no longer a battle of swords and skyfire. It became a war of ideas, of symbols, of control. And still, in the darkness, the bound angels wait. The book of Revelation speaks of a time when the abyss will open, and the imprisoned will rise once more. Not as spirits, but as something far more terrifying. As the earth grows darker and mankind plays with powers it does not understand, artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, quantum weapons, some believe we are waking up the very things that were sealed away to protect us. We are drawing back the veil. And when that veil tears, the war that began in heaven may return with fury. But the story is not without hope, because just as the light-bearer fell, others stood firm. Archangel Michael still watches, still waits. And there are those among humanity, dreamers, warriors, seekers, who carry within them the spark of resistance. The knowledge that we are not just animals crawling through time, but souls caught in a greater war. A war of light and shadow, truth and deception, divinity and corruption. The fall of the angels was not the end of heaven. It was the beginning of a long test. And maybe, just maybe, we are the deciding force. What happens next depends on what we remember, what we choose, and how we see the world around us. Because the battle for heaven did not stay in the stars. It moved into our blood, our stories, our faith. And in the silence between worlds, it waits to be finished.